Good afternoon and happy Sunday. I wanted to jump on and start doing videos. Many of you who follow my videos, and I'm always honored that folks do. And um, when folks stop me and say, "I watched your videos," I'm so grateful for that. So thanks for tuning in. I figured it was time to start doing some videos for annual conference. I also want to let you know, keep an eye out for some new online platform that you'll see a return to some of my like early in ministry blog, pulling in some of the video pieces I've been doing. So keep an eye out for that. I'm hoping to have that ready, and I'll share more details on my social media channels, hopefully by annual conference. But it is good to spend a little bit of time with you this afternoon. I just want to touch on really three things as we head into annual conference. There's lots to prepare for, but in this video, I just want to give you some tips as you're preparing for our Baltimore, Washington annual conference session, which is going to be May 13th through 15th. And then I want to touch on two pieces. The first, the constitutional amendments coming from General Conference, in particular, the regionalization and why it's so important that you vote yes and tell everybody you know, not only in Baltimore Washington Conference, but everywhere to vote yes. And then just a little piece, a little promotion of legislation that I submitted for equity and clergy vacation. So starting off, some tips. Want to encourage you this week, emails went out with clergy and laity credential forms. Make sure you bring them. Print them off, fill them out. If you're form laity, you'll need signatures from your pastor or district superintendent, depending on what category of lay delegate you are. Strongly encourage you to fill those forms out and have them ready, have them in the documentation you're going to have on you when you arrive at the hotel at the Baltimore Hilton, right next to Camden Yards. I know as a district superintendent, there are a number of folks whose forms I'll need to sign. And I am encouraging all of those people who need to get my signature to do that ahead of time. If we don't see each other, fill it out, scan it into Adobe Acrobat, sign it digitally. Make sure you have your forms ready ahead of time. Clergy, fill your form out ahead of time. There are several years when I helped at the registration check-in. They no longer have that much. I mean, things are sent out to folks and to try to make that often to make that streamlined. But clergy would just show up without a form, and then we'd all have to wait for them to fill the form out. So you're still going to have to turn your form in. Please bring the form, fill it out ahead of time. If you need a signature, get it ahead of time. As you're preparing to pack, whether you're staying at the hotel, staying at a nearby hotel, or just coming in for the day, make sure you bring with you what you're going to need to stay comfortable. As my family will tell you, the first thing that I recommend is water. Bring a water bottle that you're going to be able to refill. Helps save the planet to have a refillable water bottle, and also helps make sure that you always have water. Make sure you're going to have snacks and things that you need. Make sure you have comfortable shoes. Annual conference, sometimes some people like to wear cute shoes. Sometimes I might, but you're going to by the third day need comfortable shoes. So those are just some of the tips. Also, as we head into this annual conference, having recently received news about the new districts as part of our restructuring and our hubs, I hope that you will come to this annual conference in particular, looking forward to connecting with people in meaningful ways, people that you already know, but also meeting new people. I want to really encourage you to read the information that has come out about hubs, see who you're going to be working with, clergy and laity, and keep an eye out for those folks and use annual conference as a great way to say hello, whether to people you've been in ministry with, or maybe people who are nearby that you haven't worked closely with. So I know a lot of times when we go to any events, whether it's church, right? And at passing of the peace, you shake the hands of the folks you know. An annual conference, it's a great time to reconnect with old friends and with colleagues. But I hope that you'll make, let's say, an effort at least 3 times. I hope at least 3 people you'll try to reach out to that maybe you haven't met. And again, that you'll make a special effort to try to find and connect with people from the hub that you'll be part of, because our focus really in that hub work for this first year is certainly going to be on relationship building. So come ready to meet people and to build relationship. The second piece I want to talk about is constitutional amendments. I hope that you had a chance to be on the pre-conference briefing that was held yesterday Saturday, May 3rd. If you weren't, I'm sure the video will be up, and there was some excellent information about the constitutional amendments that were approved by General Conference and which now require ratification at all of the annual conferences. And there are 4 of them, as they shared in the presentation yesterday and as videos that have been online from the General Commission on General Conference for months remind us a few things. The first is that in order for the constitutional amendments to pass and become part of our Constitution, which if you look at the Book of Discipline are kind of the first pages, uh, they need to be approved by 2/3 of the aggregate vote of annual conferences, individuals in annual conference, not adding together annual conferences. So uh, let's say 100 people vote in this annual conference, 50 people vote in this annual conference, 200 vote in this annual conference. Of course, the numbers will be much bigger. That's 250 people voting. It doesn't matter how many annual conferences there were. It matters how many people were voting in the annual conferences when the voting happened. So in that case, 250 people, 2/3 of those voting would need to approve the constitutional amendments in order for them to pass. And so it's not enough for the constitutional amendments to just pass in our annual conference. It would be great. All of these constitutional amendments are important for the constitutional amendments to pass unanimously in the Baltimore Washington Conference because we want to stack up as many votes as possible. So tell your friends, make sure you're there. Our agenda for the annual conference says that we're scheduled to consider constitutional amendments on Wednesday morning. Be there. Be ready to vote. In particular, vital to the work that we did at General Conference and that our denomination needs to do to become truly the global church that we are, we need to pass the constitutional amendment dealing with regionalization. I did a number of videos about this around General Conference, but regionalization allows for contextual ministry around the globe. Our church is structured as it once was as a US church with mission outposts. But that's no longer who we are. We are a truly global church. And so things like the ability for United Methodists outside of the United States to adapt the Book of Discipline to their local context, the amount of time that we spend in General Conference dealing with issues that really only affect the United States. These are some of the reasons why a number of folks, including a group of United Methodists from outside the United States working on the Christmas covenant, at the same time that our United Methodist Connectional Table was working on similar legislation, all of that leading to what General Conference approved to create regionalization, to allow for contextual ministry to become very clear about what are the things that we as United Methodists hold in common and what are the things that are appropriate to be contextualized in different areas of the globe. So that, on the one hand, the United States has the ability that other United Methodists have to contextualize, and so the work that is done at General Conference are those matters that truly have global impact. I can tell you from being in Charlotte at General Conference as a delegate this time last year, that a large amount, I'm sure that I know the percentages out there. I don't have it close at hand. It often felt like 50% of the time that we were discussing items, uh, our delegates from United Methodist churches in other parts of the world outside of the United States were just sitting there. Things like our pension plan. There's a major change to our pension plan this year, and delegates from outside of the United States, their pastors are not part of that plan. And yet they had to sit and wait for us to discuss it and work through it. So those are some of the reasons it is so vital for us to have regionalization. Also to allow in the United States for us to be able to focus on mission and ministry that is important and vital in our context, and to be able to do that through our own US regional conference. So I hope that you are ready to vote yes. So be in your seat Wednesday morning. And if you still have questions about regionalization, if you feel like you're not ready yet to vote yes, there will certainly be speeches on the floor, but please reach out to me. If there are questions that you have, I'd love to be able to speak to them, whether in a video or in my new platform coming that's going to include a blog piece. But I really want to make sure that everybody is prepared to vote yes, and that if you have questions or concerns, that we're able to help answer them so that you feel comfortable affirming this really important piece. So voting yes on the constitutional amendment to allow and move into regionalization in the United Methodist Church. Finally, just a shout out for a resolution that I submitted. It's one of 8 that will come before the annual conference. And my resolution seeks to amend paragraph 4033 of our Baltimore, Washington Conference Policy and Procedure Manual to simply standardize the vacation time that is provided to all of our pastors. Currently, that paragraph says that pastors under full-time appointment are entitled to 4 weeks of vacation inclusive of Sundays, right? So uh, what a work week for you is and a Sunday, 4 of those. And it says that for part-time pastors, they have to negotiate it with their SPRC and district superintendent. In reality, many part-time pastors already receive 4 weeks because many churches recognize that their pastors are working hard, and so if a pastor is working 25%, so often we think of that as 10 to 15 hours or 50%, 20 to 25 hours. That what that is for a week, inclusive of a Sunday, is what they would get off paid for 4 weeks of the year. There are other portions of that paragraph of 4033 that provide other types of leave for clergy. Things like, and if you know that my husband Chris is our director of retreat and camping ministries, and I've been a camp volunteer, that all clergy in the conference are entitled to 1 week to go serve at camp, and it's not counted as vacation. It certainly is not a vacation. And there are a few other types that, and those do not distinguish between full-time and part-time. In addition, for churches, it doesn't matter whether your church is part-time. The paragraph is written to say that if clergy are full-time, they're entitled to 4 weeks. So if your church is 50%, but your church shares a pastor with another church that's 50%, your pastor is already entitled to 4 weeks. And so lacking the consistency between all clergy means that what the expectation is for your pastor, in theory, on paper, vacation time could change based on the appointment that's made. Finally, and I think very importantly, all of our pastors are vital parts of our church ministry. And we know that clergy who are well, mentally, emotionally, relationally, financially, all of the ways, are less likely to engage in violations of clergy ethics. We were reminded of this last week as many clergy participated in our required annual clergy ethics training, right? So clergy who are well are much healthier in ministry. And research time and again has showed that clergy that are well, that are caring for themselves and their relationships, are clergy that are able to be most effective and vital in ministry. So, for practical reasons of consistency, as well as to provide for care for all of our clergy, I submitted the change to simply say all clergy, whether full or part-time, are entitled to 4 weeks of vacation. I hope that you'll support that. And like with the constitutional amendment, if you have questions or concerns, let me know. One of the questions that I've heard is, how would you pay for that? Well, many churches already do. And both full and part-time churches are often having to think of how to be creative with expenses, including how they cover for pastoral, for pulpit supply. Some churches are able to budget for a guest speaking fee for all 4 Sundays that their pastor would take vacation. Other churches might budget for 1 or 2. They might use lay servants in their congregation. They may do a hymn sing. I've been at churches that have done that, and often sometimes have liked it more than having the preacher. Some churches pastors call upon colleagues, perhaps for Sunday morning, but also to provide pastoral care coverage while they're on vacation. Certainly, I would expect as a district superintendent that as colleagues we're helping to provide that care. Some churches invite conference staff, including your district superintendent, to preach, because conference staff, again, including your district superintendent, are already paid by mission shares. And so they're actually not allowed to. We're not allowed to accept a speaking fee. So these are just some of the ways that churches already think creatively about how to cover this time, this vacation time. And again, all of our full-time, many of our part-time churches are already providing 4 weeks. I give thanks for all of the things that our congregations do to provide for time for their pastors for rest and renewal. And I want to encourage pastors and congregations to help support your pastors to take your vacation. There is no medal given at the end of your active ministry for vacation time left on the table. It is vital that you are taking the time for rest and renewal. I promise you that if you are not, it is hurting your ministry, and it is not, and it is hurting you. It is like many other things with health. If you're not eating well, that the effect of that will accumulate. If this for any of us, if you're not getting movement, the effects of that. If you're not sleeping well, the effects of these accumulate. And so making sure that we're taking time for rest and renewal, not only vacation, but also taking Sabbath time during the week. All of this is vital. So I hope that you'll approve and support that resolution. I also hope that you'll make sure you take your time. One of the things that I often have been encouraging pastors, and I learned from a senior pastor that I worked with, is the power of taking 2 weeks straight. And not just taking 4 separate weeks. So that's an additional thing I'd invite you to consider, is if you're able to take 2 weeks. A lot of times it takes us a week just to disconnect from work. So I hope you'll support the resolution. I hope that you make sure you're taking your vacation time. So those are just some things as we prepare for annual conference. And as we look ahead, I'll be posting as we get into annual conference. And if you have any questions about things that are coming up at annual conference that you'd like me to try to break down for you, or any questions about any of the items I touched on in this video, please shoot me an email, leave it as a comment on any of the platforms this video is on. And I look forward to seeing all of you. I especially look forward to seeing all of my Harbor District folks. I look forward to working with you as we move into new conference year.